They thought my hospital bed was the end. It was just the perfect place to start. And while they whispered about my condition, I was listening and planning. It started on a humid Tuesday morning in early September in Cedar Grove, a town where everyone knows how many scoops of sugar you take in your coffee. I'd been here most of my life. Ran a hardware store on Main Street, raised 2 kids, paid off the mortgage by 60. I was never rich, but I had security, the kind you build with calloused hands and stubborn hours. Then came the chest pain. Sharp, sudden, like someone jammed a crowbar into my ribs. I remember the ambulance's fluorescent lights flickering above me, the siren wailing through town, and the way the paramedic kept saying, "Stay with me, Mr. Carter." That's my name, John Carter. 68 years old, too stubborn to slow down, and now strapped to a gurney. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. Machines beeped steadily in the background. Doctors murmured about blocked arteries, surgery, recovery time. I lay there, half-dazed, until I saw the faces I knew, my daughter Claire, my son Michael, and my sister-in-law Denise, all standing in a little huddle near the foot of my bed. They weren't crying. They weren't even looking at me. They were talking about money. His insurance should cover most of it, Claire was saying, flipping through a folder like she was reviewing a contract. But if it doesn't, we could, tap into the accounts. Accounts. My accounts. The savings I'd built over 4 decades. I kept my eyes closed, let my breathing stay slow. They thought I was out of it, but every word burned into my skull. Michael chimed in, his voice low, conspiratorial. If he's not able to make decisions for a while, someone's got to manage things. We can make it official. Denise knows a guy who can handle the paperwork fast. Denise gave this little laugh, sharp, like a knife scraping a plate. Better sooner than later. That's when I knew. This wasn't about helping me recover. It was about stripping me bare before I even left the hospital. They smelled money the second they smelled weakness. I kept my face still, but inside, a switch flipped. This wouldn't be their payday. Lying in that hospital bed, I realized I had 2 advantages, time, and the fact that they thought I was too weak to think straight. That's a dangerous mistake to make about me. The first day after surgery, I played the role they expected. Weak, quiet, nodding when nurses asked questions, pretending to nap whenever Claire came in with her, "How are we feeling today, Dad?" voice. I kept my eyes half-lidded, but my ears open. Claire was the talker. She'd ramble on the phone right there in my room, thinking I wasn't catching every word. "Yeah, I know he's stubborn about the will, but this might be our only chance. If he needs a guardian, it could be me or Michael." And then, a pause, then a laugh. I'm not saying we'd change everything, but we'd have to make some adjustments. Adjustments. That was their polite little code word for cleaning me out. Michael, on the other hand, was all business. No chit-chat, no small talk. He'd just stand by the window, texting someone, then leave with a tight nod. Once, I caught a glimpse of his phone screen, something about power of attorney forms. He'd even bookmarked a legal template site. I needed eyes and ears outside this room. So, on the 3rd morning, when my nurse, a young guy named Eric with a half-sleeve of tattoos, came in to check my vitals, I decided to make my move. "You got a phone I can borrow?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Your family usually, not them," I cut in. "This is between you and me. I'll make it worth your while." Eric gave me a long look, then slipped his phone out of his pocket and handed it to me like we were doing something illegal. I dialed the one person I knew would pick up without hesitation, Carl Jennings, my oldest friend and the closest thing I have to a brother. We'd built houses together in the summers of our 20s, and I trusted him with my life. "John? What the hell? Don't talk. Just listen," I said. "I'm in St. Mary's, heart surgery. The kids, they're circling like vultures. I need you to get into my office. Top drawer, brown envelope marked winter plan. Take it. Keep it safe. And Carl, don't tell a soul." Carl didn't ask questions. He just said, "Got it," and hung up. That's why he's my guy. When Eric took his phone back, I gave him a nod. "You ever need a favor, you call me." He smirked. Guess I'm on Team John now. That night, lying in the dim glow of the hallway lights spilling into my room, I felt a strange calm settle over me. My assets were already moving into safer hands. My kids thought they were days away from taking control. They had no idea that control had just slipped through their fingers. By the 5th day, the hospital room felt less like a place of recovery and more like a stage. Every beep from the heart monitor, every shuffle of rubber soles in the hallway was just background noise. The real show was happening between my children, and they didn't even realize I was watching every act. Michael came in first that morning, a thin manila folder tucked under his arm. He thought he was being subtle, angling himself so the folder faced away from me. But I've spent my life reading people. I knew a hidden move when I saw one. He placed it on the chair and began flipping through it like he was reviewing work notes. I caught enough of the header on one page, Durable Power of Attorney. He cleared his throat. Dad, the hospital's going to need someone to manage your affairs if you're stuck here a while. Just standard procedure. You know, bills, insurance. I kept my voice slow, groggy. Makes sense. You talked to Claire about it. His eyes flickered, just for a second, the way a boxer flinches when you faint. We're on the same page, he said. Claire arrived an hour later, perfume clouding the air like she was attending a gala, not visiting her recovering father. She perched on the edge of the bed, too close, her manicured hand patting mine. Dad, you shouldn't worry about these things. Let us take the stress off you. You focus on getting better. We'll handle the rest. I almost laughed. The rest. Another polite code for everything you own. I gave her my most harmless old man smile. That's kind of you. Maybe you and your brother can come by tomorrow. Bring the papers. We'll see. Her eyes lit up like a kid who just found the hidden candy stash. She thought I was caving. That night, when the hallway went quiet and the only sound was the soft hiss of the oxygen line, I called Carl again. Time for phase 2, I said. He grunted. That the one with your lawyer? Yep. And make sure she gets everything. Copies, originals, the works. Tell her to move the accounts. All of them. Carl chuckled low. You're about to make them very unhappy. Good, I said. They've been rehearsing this little heist for weeks. Let's make opening night unforgettable. The next morning, I asked Eric, my nurse, for a small favor again. Find me a notary service that'll come to the hospital, I told him. No family involved. Quiet as possible. He raised an eyebrow. Planning something, Mr. Whitaker? Just a little insurance policy, I said. By noon, I was signing documents in front of a stranger with a clipboard, my assets sliding further away from my children's reach. Every pen stroke felt like tightening a knot they wouldn't be able to untie. The best part? Tomorrow, I'd let them think they were finally getting what they wanted. And that's when I'd snap the trap shut. The weather broke the next morning, sunlight pouring through the thin hospital blinds, sharp and golden. Perfect for the kind of performance I was about to stage. I told the nurse to open the window a crack. I wanted the air to feel fresh, welcoming. A predator's lair shouldn't look like one. By noon, Michael and Claire arrived together. He wore a cheap suit he thought made him look important, and she had a folder clutched so tightly I half expected it to tear. They didn't notice the second chair I'd asked to be placed by my bed, right next to the table where a neat stack of my documents sat, paper clipped and ready. Morning, Dad, Michael said, that rehearsed smile plastered on his face. Morning, I answered, voice warm. Looks like a good day to get things in order. Claire leaned forward. Exactly. We brought what you'll need to sign. This will just make everything easier. I gave them a slow nod, let the pause hang. I've been thinking the same thing, which is why I had my attorney prepare some paperwork of my own. Michael's smile flickered, then snapped back into place. Oh? Well, that's fine. We can actually, I cut in. Let's do mine first. Less confusing that way. I slid the stack toward them. The top page was clean, bold, irrevocable trust agreement. Claire's eyes narrowed as she scanned the first few lines, her lips tightening. This, she began, moves everything I own into a trust. I finished for her. No withdrawals, no transfers, no access until certain conditions are met. Michael's voice lost its polish. What conditions? I leaned back, savoring the moment. 1 year. Full-time work in a registered charitable organization. No access to family funds during that year. Complete the requirement, you get your share. Fail, and it stays in the trust. Claire's voice pitched higher. You can't just, I already did, I said, smiling. The silence that followed was better than any applause. They didn't know I'd been signing these documents with a notary 2 days ago. Everything was sealed, legal, unshakable. Michael tried to recover. We could challenge this in court. I let a dry chuckle escape. You could try. But the property? The accounts? Already transferred. The trust is ironclad. I made sure of it. Claire looked like she'd swallowed glass. Michael just stared at the folder, flipping the pages like maybe, just maybe, the words would rearrange themselves into something friendlier. I checked the clock. Visiting hours were almost up. Take your copy, I said. Read it over. Decide if you'd rather work or walk away with nothing. They left in a silence, so Thicket followed them out the door. But I knew this wasn't over. They'd try to break me another way, and I was ready for them. They didn't wait long. 3 days later, Michael came back without Claire, but he didn't come alone. A man in a gray suit followed him in, tall, slick hair, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my first car. Dad, Michael said, voice tight. This is Mr. Parsons. He's here to clarify some things about that trust. Parsons gave me the kind of smile lawyers reserve for people they think are cornered. Mr. Donovan, I've reviewed your paperwork. Impressive effort, but there are vulnerabilities. You see, under state law. I cut in, leaning forward. Funny, I didn't use state law to structure it. He blinked. Excuse me? I gestured toward the folder on my table. It's a Delaware trust. Administered out of Wilmington. Filed with a corporate trustee who doesn't care about your last name or your feelings. That means your state law is about as useful here as a screen door on a submarine. Parsons shifted in his seat. Michael frowned, clearly not following the legal gymnastics. We can still challenge it, he insisted. Oh, you can, I said with a shrug. But every challenge triggers a clause. You lose 10% of your share for each attempt. 3 failed attempts, and your share drops to 0. Michael's face drained of color. That's insane. No, I said, my voice hard now. What's insane is thinking you could walk into my hospital room, shove a pen in my hand, and strip away everything I've built without me seeing it coming. Parsons cleared his throat. Even so, there may be a way to, not unless you can rewrite federal trust law in the next 24 hours, I interrupted. And if you try, well, my attorney's on retainer. Every letter you send will cost you more than you'll ever get back. Michael sat back, jaw tight. I could see the wheels turning, but the thing about Michael is he never could plan without someone else pulling the strings. Without Claire here to whisper in his ear, he was just a man staring at a locked door with no key. Parsons finally stood. We'll review our options. Do that, I said. And remember, the more time you spend chasing me, the more time you're not working toward what you need to unlock a single dollar. They left together, though Michael didn't look at me once on the way out. I could almost hear the argument starting before the elevator doors even closed. But I wasn't fooled. This was just the first round. The next one would be dirtier. And I already knew how I was going to win it. I didn't have to wait long before they changed their strategy. By the end of the week, I started hearing whispers from old friends. A neighbor stopped me on my way back from the post office, her eyes darting like she wasn't sure if she should say it. John, is it true? About the nursing home, she asked, lowering her voice. I felt my jaw tighten. What about it? She hesitated. That you're not well enough to be on your own. That you've been confused lately. Michael and Claire said they're worried you might hurt yourself. There it was. I could practically see their fingerprints on every word. This wasn't just gossip, it was a campaign. They couldn't break the trust in court, so they were going to try something uglier, strip me of my competence, paint me as a doddering old man who needed protection. 2 days later, I saw the proof. A post popped up on a local Facebook group, grainy photo of me carrying groceries, then forward under the weight, captioned, "Sad to see Mr. Donovan struggling. Does anyone know if he's getting help?" Claire's friend had posted it. And the comments? Oh, they were a masterpiece of fake concern. So awful. Michael told me he's been forgetting things. He shouldn't be alone. It's dangerous. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. That's how you lose these games, by playing on their terms. Instead, I printed every single post, every screenshot, every timestamp. I called my attorney, Larkin, and sent him the file. "This is defamation," Larkin said, voice like steel. "And under your trust terms, a documented attempt to undermine your mental capacity automatically freezes their eligibility for 3 additional years." I smiled into the phone. Perfect. Let them keep talking. The next week, I staged a little theater. I invited the pastor from the local church, the librarian, and 3 neighbors I trusted over for coffee. All people who'd known me for decades. We sat in my kitchen, the smell of fresh brewed coffee filling the air, and I asked each of them about their families, their work, the news. I made sure to weave in details, dates, names, small-town events from years ago. No notes, no hesitation. Every sentence was clear, sharp. I saw it in their eyes. Whatever rumors they'd heard, I'd just buried them. And sure enough, within 48 hours, a new rumor started circulating, that Michael and Claire had been exaggerating my condition to get control of my estate. Someone even sent me an anonymous screenshot from Claire's group chat, where she complained that the old man is suddenly acting like he's 40 again. She wasn't wrong. I was acting younger. Revenge will do that to you. Larkin called again. "John, I filed the freeze notice. They won't see a cent until 3 years after they've completed the charity work, and that clock hasn't even started yet." I sat back in my chair, the evening sun spilling across my kitchen table. 3 years of watching me live my life while they scraped by without my money. But I wasn't done. Not yet, because they had just given me the excuse I needed to take it even further. By the time December rolled in, they were still treating the fellowship like a bad temp job. Claire clocked her hours, Michael did the bare minimum, and every time I stopped by the ward, I could smell the resentment on them like cheap cologne. But resentment doesn't void a contract. Mistakes do. And I was patient. One afternoon, I got a call from Pete, the volunteer coordinator. His voice was low, like he didn't want the other staff to hear. "Frank, you might want to come in. Something happened with the donation ledger." The pediatric wing had a glass-walled admin office tucked behind the playroom. I stood outside, watching through the pane as Pete and Janine went over a stack of receipts. Michael sat opposite them, stiff-backed, arms crossed. Claire wasn't there. When Pete waved me in, the air in the room felt warm, almost sticky, like the smell of copier ink mixed with the faint antiseptic coming off the hallway. "We've got 2 missing checks," Janine said, not looking at me. They were logged, but never deposited. She turned a page and tapped it with her pen. "Both went missing on days your son-in-law handled intake." Michael bristled. "You think I stole from a children's hospital?" I didn't answer. Just let the silence press on him until he started shifting in his seat. Pete leaned back. "Nobody's saying that. Yet. But until it's resolved, you're benched. No access to intake, no unsupervised shifts." Michael's ears went red. "This is ridiculous." "Claire and I cut him off. Clause 9C, Michael. Remember?" His jaw clenched. Of course he remembered. Any verified act of dishonesty during service voids eligibility permanently. We left the office without another word. Down the hall, I caught sight of Claire at the vending machine, tapping her card against the reader over and over. She looked up when she saw us, eyes darting between my face and Michael's. I didn't say a thing. I didn't have to. The air between them was already fraying. That night, my lawyer called. If this sticks, Frank, the trust bypasses them entirely. Straight to the pediatric endowment. You want me to push for a formal investigation? I looked out my kitchen window at the frost edging the glass, the street lamps painting the snow in yellow halos. Not yet, I said. I want to see how far they'll hang themselves without me touching the rope. The next morning, I parked across from the hospital, watching through the glass bridge as they walked in together. Their faces were tight, no talking, no eye contact. And I knew whatever they were hiding, it was going to surface. The only question was whether I'd let it happen, or give it a little push. By the second week of December, the walls were closing in on them. Not mine, theirs. Michael still had his temporary suspension at the hospital, but that just meant Claire had to pick up all the shifts alone. She hated every minute of it. The pediatric wing was noisy, chaotic, unpredictable, three things she never tolerated well. I heard from Pete twice that week. First call was about a missing set of craft supplies from the locked storage room. Second was about a donation box coming up short after Claire's shift. I'm not saying anything official yet, Pete told me, but we're keeping records. If she slips, it's over. I didn't tell him I'd already made sure she'd slip. C. The vending machine next to the nurse's station? I'd arranged for it to take only cash for a week. And when Claire realized she didn't have singles, she borrowed them from the donation jar on the counter. Harmless, she probably thought. But Pete saw it, wrote it down. Now, here's the thing, none of this alone was going to bury them. But together, it was enough for me to do what I'd been waiting 12 months to do. On December 21st, I met with my lawyer in his office on Main Street. Snow was coming down in slow, heavy flakes, coating the awnings and the old brick in a clean white layer. We went over the trust documents line by line. Clause 9. See any act of dishonesty during the service year, verified by the organization's administration, results in immediate forfeiture of inheritance. We had it in writing from the hospital. 2 incidents from Michael, 1 from Claire. Dates, witnesses, internal memos. It's airtight, Frank, my lawyer said, sliding the folder toward me. We can close the trust to them as early as tomorrow. I nodded but didn't sign. Not yet, because I wanted them to feel it. Not just lose. Feel it. Christmas Eve, I invited them to dinner. I knew they'd come. Money's a strong enough scent to pull even the most reluctant wolves back to the table. The roast was on the counter when they walked in, steam curling in the warm kitchen air. I let them take their coats off before I slid the thick manila envelope onto the table. What's this? Claire asked, voice tight. Your inheritance, I said. Or what's left of the idea of it. Michael frowned, flipping it open. Inside were copies of the hospital reports, the trust clause highlighted in yellow, and the formal notice from my lawyer. Claire's voice cracked. You can't, I can, I said, calm as the snow outside. And I have. You both had one job for 1 year. You didn't last 6 months without lying, stealing, and cutting corners. That's not my fault. That's who you are. Michael's chair scraped against the hardwood as he stood, but I didn't flinch. The trust is closed to you. Everything, every cent, goes to the pediatric endowment. Effective now. Claire's face was pale, her hands frozen on the table's edge. So what do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I pushed back my chair, stood, and picked up their coats. Work, I said, handing them over. Just like everyone else. They left without touching the roast. I stood at the window, watching them walk to their car through the snow. Street lamps caught the flakes in slow motion, the silence swallowing the sound of their boots. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Maybe I did in a cold, quiet way. But more than anything, I felt finished. And when the car pulled away, disappearing into the dark, I whispered to no one in particular, Merry Christmas.